Rolling through a Wednesday with you on KCMO Talk Radio in Kansas City, and we now welcome on and say good morning to the former governor of Missouri. He is Eric Greitens. He's on KCMO. And Eric, good morning. Thank you for being here. And before we get into, what we want to talk about today, you're doing a lot of media, Eric. How is it living on the other side, so to speak?
Pete, it is a lot of fun, but it's no more fun than when I get to come on with Mundo in the morning, man. So thanks for having me. We're having a good time. Look, I think it's really, really important. You've seen what the left is doing. We conservatives who are willing to fight have got to get out there and have our voices heard. So I've been happy to be out there, fighting on the front lines.
Well, I'll tell you what, Eric, there are a lot of things that obviously are happening in this country that I want to get your thoughts on. But one of the reasons I wanted to welcome you on here is because I saw some comments that you made yesterday that people have been, putting a bug in my ear about, and that's what your political future might look like. For the audience, I want to play these comments you made yesterday on Steve Bannon's show, and then just kind of get your thoughts on what that might mean here going forward. Here it is.
Blunt not just dropped the ball. He's carrying water for the Biden administration. It's not acceptable. This guy, his sell-by date is gone. He's got to retire. Greitens.
Yeah, look, this is a guy who's come out, and like I said, he was standing right there with Joe Biden at the inauguration, criticizing President Trump that very day, saying that Trump needed to be there, that Trump should have been there. And he's working for lobbyists instead of fighting for the people of Missouri.
Outrageous.
That was you yesterday with Steve Bannon, Eric, and that raised some eyebrows, including here. Roy Blunt's up for re-election in 2022. How much interest is there from Eric Greitens in looking at that U.S. Senate seat?
Yeah, Pete, look, I've always fought for people. I did it as a Navy SEAL, fought when I set up the Mission Continues to help to welcome home our veterans. And as all of your listeners know, it was honored to fight every day as governor. And I think that the people of Missouri and conservatives in Missouri, it's really clear they overwhelmingly support President Trump. They do not want to be governed by insiders. And like I said, I think it was really disappointing to see, Roy Blunt, who should be fighting for the people of Missouri. Instead, he's criticizing President Trump. He's right there with Biden and Obama, and clearly appears to be loyal to insiders and Mitch McConnell. So, haven't made any decisions, but obviously want to continue to fight for the people of Missouri.
Would you say the door is not closed, though? Is it something you're thinking about?
Yeah, I'll always keep these options open. I think especially at a time like this, when you're seeing Joe Biden and leftists push this radical agenda where they're going after free speech. They're enlisting big tech to censor people. You look at the cancel culture. You look at what they've done around killing jobs with the Keystone XL pipeline, the destruction of girls' sports, the failure to reopen schools, their open borders policy. This is a time when conservatives and people who really believe in putting America first need to stand up and fight.
So Eric Greitens joining us on KCMO Talk Radio. You ripped off some of the damage that's been done here in just a few short weeks, unfortunately. Is there an issue, Eric, that you believe has gone undercovered or under-discussed over the last few weeks from this administration?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's happening is that they're clearly trying to sort of flood the zone with all of these leftist initiatives. And it's very clear that it is the left that is pushing this agenda. If you polled the American people and said, how many of you want the first major bill coming out of the Biden administration to be an open borders bill? Nobody was supporting that. And in fact, Joe Biden, when he was campaigning from his basement, wasn't even saying that this was what he was going to do. The rhetoric of the Biden administration just does not match the reality. They said they were going to be supporting jobs. What does Joe Biden do? He comes in right away, signs an executive order, kills 11,000 jobs on the Keystone XL pipeline, and also imperils one of President Trump's great achievements, which was to we've achieved American energy independence, and now he's putting that at risk. I think all of those things need to be covered. And then finally, I think there's been a lot of focus on domestic issues. It's also important to look abroad. President Trump had the greatest record on supporting the state of Israel and on bringing peace to the Middle East of any president in generations. And clearly, Biden It took him 29 days to even call Netanyahu. He's cozying up to Iran. Looks like he's opening up the bad Barack Obama deal, which would have enabled a nuclear Iran. All of these things need attention, and that's why we've got to be out there getting the message out to people.
So, Eric, what would you, if you were either in Congress or talking to folks in Congress on the Republican side of the aisle, I mean, what can they do at this point? They don't have the House. They obviously don't have the White House. They've got a 50-50 split in the Senate. They may try to jam through this $1.9 trillion bill through reconciliation. So what can they be doing today to try to, slow down a lot of what you're talking about that's been happening the past few weeks?
Well, first of all, it's not just slowing down. It's also letting the American people know what is happening. I mean, the leftist agenda is so radical. The stuff that Joe Biden is pushing is so radical that the American people need to know it. Unfortunately, you have far too many people who have an R behind their name who are simply quiet, right? And they're quiet because they serve the establishment, they serve lobbyists. They're not willing to stand up and fight. Let's take just one of those issues. I mean, you talk about the Keystone XL pipeline. Not enough Republicans have been out talking about what this means to every family in the state of Missouri. Not only are you killing off, tens of thousands of jobs directly on the pipeline, not only are you imperiling national security, not only are you driving up American energy costs, but all of these things are happening, and we don't have enough Republicans who are willing to stand up and let the American people know what's happening. One of the things that representatives have to do, one of the things that senators have to do, is that they have to be willing to stand up and fight against these things when they happen, and also educate the American people. One of the reasons why big tech has taken such an active role in censoring people, in canceling people, in trying to quiet these voices is because you haven't had enough Republicans who've been willing to stand up against big tech. So I think that's just part of what needs to be done, but it has to be done boldly, it has to be done with strength, and it has to be done with courage.
On the issue of big tech, Eric Greitens joining us on KCMO on a Wednesday morning. What is that like? How do you balance understanding what is happening here with this monopoly that is clearly growing rapidly, with the idea of free market conservatism? How do you balance that, Eric, and try to get this thing back in line based on the power that these companies do hold?
Yeah, look, well, first of all, one of the things that we have to recognize is that what comes first in the United States of America is the Constitution. And the Constitution is very clear that everyone has the right to freedom of speech. Everyone has the right to freedom of expression. And what you're seeing is big tech, they're not even hiding it now that the left has come in. They are unabashedly going after conservative voices. They're not kicking liberals off of their platform. They're not kicking leftists off of their platform. They're not even kicking, a lot of foreign powers off of their platform who are advocating for terrorism, but they are willing to kick conservatives off of their platform. And I think it's absolutely, we've reached the point when we look at their behavior, we look at what they're doing to threaten the free speech, not just of people like President Trump, but of conservatives across the board, conservatives in media, conservatives who are active in their communities, even people who are just asking questions. When you see them going after conservatives like this, it's time for people in Congress to stand up and say, what you're doing is unconstitutional. As representatives of the Constitution, we are going to take action against you. And we just haven't seen that.
He is Eric Greitens, the former governor of Missouri, and he is on KCMO Talk Radio. Eric, it's always great to have you back on in Kansas City. We appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you. Thanks so much, Pete.
You bet. He's Eric Greitens on KCMO Talk Radio. Interesting conversation. Doesn't sound like a guy who is closing the door. Talked a lot about Republicans being fighters and fighting, and left the door open. I don't know what's going to happen, but it could be a very interesting upcoming several months on the Missouri side with all this. Very interesting. Keep an eye on it, of course.